Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Love is What You Bake of It from the Meraki series, Book 1 by Effie Kammenou, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Prologue, Kelly, July 2011. Gravel crunched under the soles of Calliope's espadrilles as she stepped from the car. Shielding her eyes with both hands to protect them from the glaring sun, she squinted up at the clear blue sky. Golden rays radiated streams of light in what might be interpreted as joy shining down from the heavens. It was the kind of day Long Islanders dreamed of, as summer weather in the Northeast was often unpredictable. But today, Calliope cursed the sun smiling down upon her, taunting her, reminding her that everyone but she was brimming with joy as they frolicked at the beach or walked hand in hand by the pier with their special someone. Callie begged for the gloom, some rain perhaps, or even a damn hailstorm. Anything for a drop of sympathy from above. Even the cemetery didn't hold the air of despondency it should have. The grass was lush, and the branches on the magnolia trees hung low, dense with shiny green leaves. Callie made her way down the row of stone markers. Halting before one, she fell to her knees, the moist soil and prickly blades of grass staining her skin. With shaking hands, she ran her fingers along the engraving on the polished granite. The date a blatant reminder that today was only one day after the first anniversary of his death. She couldn't bring herself to come here yesterday for fear of who else might have been visiting, or at the risk of any questions as to why she, a strange woman, was crying at his gravesite. The evidence before her proved that many had indeed come to grieve him. Fresh flowers covered the grave. Notes, flags, and a miniature model motorcycle adorned his final resting place, bringing life and love to the otherwise cold stone. Collapsing over the lifeless monument, Callie broke down into racking sobs. Why would you do this to me? How could you leave me with so many unanswered questions? She wept, her shoulders shaking with the agony of it all. Hunched over the stone, her mass of long, dark curls draping over her, covering her face as she continued to cry privately. Or so she thought, until a hand rested softly on her shoulder, startling her. "Are you okay?" a voice from behind asked sympathetically. Callie turned quickly, relieved it wasn't anyone he had known. Not sure how to answer, she looked up at a set of kind brown eyes and nodded. Climbing to her feet, she brushed off the blades of grass stuck to her knees and faced the young woman. "It's a difficult day for me. I guess we all have them," Callie stammered. "Otherwise we wouldn't both be here." "I've had many days like you're having now." The young woman nodded in understanding as she guided Callie over to a nearby bench. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Honestly, I wouldn't know where to begin. It's been a year and I've been through more emotions than I can count. Shock, sadness, anger." Callie sighed, averting her eyes from the stranger. "Regret?" "I know those emotions well, but it gets better, I promise. The ache in your heart will always be there, but it changes into something more manageable." She quietly laughed self-mockingly under her breath, shaking her head at her own words. "Here I go, acting as though I have all the answers. After all, I've only recently discovered how to allow myself to be happy after loss." "May I ask who you lost?" Callie asked. The young woman sighed. "My father died when I was 10, but I'm here to speak to my Yaya. She was who I always went to when I needed to talk or get advice." Callie looked at her quizzically. "Your Yaya?" "Oh, I'm sorry, my grandmother." I know what a Yaya is. I have one myself," Callie said with a small smile. "Huh, you're Greek. My Yaya used to say the Greeks have a natural magnetic pull toward each other, and that if we were tiny fish in an ocean of sea life, we'd still find our way to each other." Callie's mouth curved up slightly. There's a lot of truth in that. "And speaking of finding people," she said, blowing out a nervous breath, "I'm leaving for Kefalonia tonight to hopefully win back the affection of someone I've been pushing away for years. I just needed a little hug from above before I go. I'm Evie, by the way." "Nice to meet you. I'm Calliope. Callie." She liked this woman. There was a kindness about her, and Callie could see her concern was genuine. "Tell me about this man. I could stand to hear something positive at the moment." Callie listened as Evie told her briefly of her relationship with Zach, the man she was determined to win back. She had done everything in her power to protect her heart from falling in love so as not to risk losing another person who meant the world to her. But then I finally realized that, like the song says, I had learned to live half alive, and I couldn't do it anymore. It's more painful to be without him. So, what was I really protecting myself from? It only took me forever to figure out I was fooling myself into a false sense of security. I just hope it's not too late. Kelly shook her head adamantly. It's not. If he's anything like you say he is, he'll understand. You have a chance. A good one, too, because he's out there, and you can find him. It's not like that for me. Jackson is dead, and I'll never get the answers I need from him. I'm so sorry, Effie said. It doesn't matter. We wouldn't have ended up together anyway. That song, it must have been written with him in mind, Callie said bitterly. Collecting his jar of hearts. Wish I had found out before the accident. Effie rested her hand on Callie's shoulder, a look of sympathy reflected in her features. I think you should put this behind you. It doesn't sound like he was worthy of you. Don't look back and cry over his grave. He doesn't deserve it. You need to move ahead with your life. I just wish I had the answers to my questions, Callie sighed. But you're right. He doesn't deserve my tears. She clasped Effie's hands in hers. But you, go convince that man he can't live without you. Both women rose to their feet and hugged. Thank you for taking the time to cheer up a stranger, Callie said with a smile. I'd love to find out how your story ends. When you get back, you should stop by my dad's restaurant. I help out a few days a week. I'll give you the address. We can do better than that. Give me your number, and I'll text you. Callie pulled her phone from the back pocket of her shorts. The girls exchanged numbers, promising to keep in touch. When Effie walked away, Callie made her way back to Jackson's grave. For a moment she stared at the stone, her eyes calm as she considered the past buried there. I won't be back, she said resolutely, and I'll never forget you. Chapter 1. Callie, September 2018. The village of Port Jefferson was still bustling with activity 2 weeks after Labor Day. While most harbor towns and tourist villages on Long Island quieted after the summer ended, this quaint little town never seemed to die down, not even in the dead of winter. A commuter ferry system ran year-long, crossing the Long Island Sound to reach Connecticut, and in the summer tourists passed through, many on their way to other destinations. The main streets were lined with boutiques, novelty shops, restaurants, and cafes. There were more ice cream parlors than one could possibly imagine in such a tiny town, the most popular being a small stand at the end of a row of stores in Chandler Square. On any given day or evening, the line would stretch from one end of the strip to the other. Callie had lived in Port Jefferson her whole life. Unlike her sisters, who had dreams of moving to more exotic places, Callie loved this corner of the world. Her corner of the world. In her mind, it had everything she needed. The pier for strolling along and admiring the sunset, a variety of restaurants, fetch doggy boutique to spoil her Yorkie Emma, and the Greek Orthodox church she attended as often as she could manage. Most of all, there was her very own establishment, the one she dreamed of opening for years. The Coffee Clatch was a cafe that promised new experiences while providing a welcoming, friendly atmosphere with its open design, soft pastel colors, and floor-to-ceiling window front. A book nook with cozy couches and armchairs dominated one corner of the space, while tables filled the rest of the area. Glass cases boasted artfully decorated pastries, and the countertops held cake-filled glass domes and jars brimming with candy. With several other cafes and tea rooms in the area, it had been important for Callie to find a way to distinguish hers from the others, and she accomplished that by offering an international flair. A range of unique caffeine-induced beverages were made available. Greek coffee, frappe, cappuccino, café au lait, café d'ola, even English high tea were just some of the drinks on offer. And the pastries Callie created to complement each beverage put the icing on the cake, so to speak. It was Sunday afternoon. Callie had locked the doors to the cafe at 4 o'clock and sent the staff home, staying behind to settle the receipts for the day. Satisfied that everything was in order, she gathered her bag and a pile of soiled aprons and headed to the front entrance. A warm breeze tickled her skin. Closing her eyes, she lifted her face to the sun, smiling at the pleasant afternoon, yet regretting that she had no time to enjoy it. Today was her sister Mia's name day, and Callie was expected for dinner. The Greeks celebrated the feast day of the saint they were named after rather than their birthdays, but here in the States they celebrated both. Double the obligations, double the family time. Not that she didn't love her family, but sometimes they could be too much, too intrusive, just too... Briskly she crossed the street and walked up the block to the cottage she'd proudly purchased the year before. It was another thing she'd had her eye on for a long time. The fragrant lilacs surrounding the stark white house had always appealed to her. When it fortuitously went up for sale, she snapped it up before the real estate agent had a chance to stake the sign into the ground. "Emma, I'm home," she called. "Come on, girl, let's go out." "It's about time," George said as Callie walked into her parents' home. "Kalispera to you, too, Baba," she answered in a deadpan tone, her eyebrow raised. "Aren't you in a welcoming mood?" she added sardonically. "My pastry chef quit on me last night. I wouldn't have had that problem if you didn't leave me." Not that again, Callie thought. "I'm sorry." And she truly was, but her father's guilt trip for every decision she made was getting old. "I'm sorry you lost your pastry chef. I'll call my contacts and see what I can do for you." There was no point in defending her decision to branch out on her own. It would just end in another argument. "Good, you're here," Melina said, glancing from the kitchen. "The food is on the table. A latte." "Hi, Mom." Callie kissed her mom on the cheek, handing her a bakery box from the coffee clutch. "Theo, Christina," Melina called out. "Ella, come down for dinner." "Where's Mia?" Callie asked. "I'm right here," Mia gargled, patting from the kitchen with a half-eaten potato wedge in her hand. "Ronia Pola, Naharaste ti Yoratasu. Happy name day, Mia." Callie handed her sister a small craft paper gift bag tied with a pale blue satin bow. "Should I open it now?" Mia asked. "Absolutely," Callie replied. A high-pitched, fast-paced, heavily accented voice from the kitchen grew closer. Swinging her trusty cotule wooden spoon frantically in their direction, she scolded, "Elettora, to fiato crayone." "We're coming now, Yaya. Trust me, the food is still piping hot," Mia said. "I almost burned my mouth on the potato." Thunderous, uproarious thumps caught everyone's attention as Theo and Christina stomped down the staircase. "Did I hear my favorite word, food?" Theo asked, breezing by without even a greeting and heading for the back porch. Callie shook her head with a smile. Nothing ever changes, she thought with a sigh. The temperature had dropped to a pleasant 60 degrees as the sun began to dip lower. The brushstrokes of marigold, rose, and lilac peeked through the tall green foliage that surrounded the Andaraki's property, the sky above transforming from sunshine to moonlight without a single cloud to impede the view of its celestial beauty. Every morsel of food had been consumed. Grilled herb lamb chops, Greek sausage called lucaniko, grilled branzino with scortalia, lemon potatoes, and a horotiki Greek salad. "So when are you coming home for good?" George asked Mia suddenly. "Yorios," Melina scolded. She only called him by his Greek name when she was mad at him, which was often. "How many times are you going to ask me that? I like living in the city. I work there," Mia replied. "The train station is a mile away," he said, pointing his pudgy finger at her. "It's convenient. You can get to work from here." Mia glared at her father. "It's a 2-hour commute for me to get downtown." "A girl is supposed to live in her home until she gets married." George slammed his hand down on the teak table so hard that his dish jumped. "That goes for you, too." He shifted his focus to Callie. "And what if I never get married? Do you want me to be stuck with me forever?" Callie crossed her arms in challenge. "That old-world thinking doesn't apply anymore." "You should want to get married one day," Melina said. "Find the right man. A good man." She snapped her head around and glared at her husband. "Not a Greek man. They're impossible." "Melina," George groaned. "What are you teaching the girls?" The squeak and clack of the fence gate halted the bickering. "We're here," a cheerful voice called out. Mia was the first to rise from her seat to greet her godparents at the door. Dalia and Marcos were her mother's cousins. Thalia's mother, Rhea, who stood alongside them, gave refuge to Melina and her mother when they left Kalamata. Melina and Thalia had been raised more as sisters than as cousins.